After 4 years at the helm of the Australian Human Rights Commission, Catherine Branson is leaving. And she's made an impassioned appeal for the government to abandon mandatory detention and to free asylum seekers who've not been granted security clearances by ASIO. She's labelled the practice of indefinite detention of those who fail security checks as inhumane. Philippa McDonald reports.
Catherine Branson is leaving the nation's top human rights job with a parting shot at the government and its security agencies, especially when it comes to asylum seekers who fail ASIO security checks.
We do know that it's possible to fail a security assessment without necessarily being a risk to the Australian community. What we urge is that every person in this situation is individually assessed to see whether they would be a danger to the Australian community if they lived in it. And even if they are, whether it's a danger that could be managed by placing conditions on their right to live in the community.
Ms Branson says ASIO is not obliged to give reasons, so it's impossible to seek judicial review, and it's unacceptable that up to 50 people are languishing indefinitely in the nation's detention centres.
There's no realistic prospect of sending them to third countries, and because they've been found to be refugees, they can't go back to their own countries. So we need to find something humane.
Ms Branson has branded Australia's immigration system as the strictest in the Western world.
And there's no evidence that it works. It's a real question whether we need to maintain it. It's expensive, it is damaging to people. I think we have to ask, why are we doing this?
But her final report card does give the government a tick when it comes to its overall humanitarian program and increasingly moving asylum seekers out of detention. Right now, there are almost 300 children in the nation's detention centres. Another 635 are living in the community.
We applaud this. If we are to have mandatory detention, then we need more people detained in the community. Many of these people, most of these people, go on to stay in Australia. Their capacity to be productive, healthy members of our society is undermined by their long detention.
Significant compensation has already been paid to some former detainees held for long periods, particularly under the Howard government.
As the periods of time that people have been held more recently have blown out, increasing numbers of complaints have come here of arbitrary detention. 75, I think, came in the last financial year. It's not uncommon for me to make a finding of arbitrary detention. It is important to understand that detention can be lawful, but nonetheless arbitrary, because it can't be shown to be necessary in Australia's interest to maintain individuals in detention.
But for the most part, Ms Branson says her findings have fallen on deaf ears. Philippa McDonald, Lateline.